Enjoy.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, so what is the kind of the team, the player thought on the new format, and how much of a relief is it to kind of know what the season looks like?
I think it's really exciting that we kind of have an answer to what's going on right now, just because it's been in question for a while, and I think now being able to just know that we're going to have an opportunity to play this fall is really exciting, and it's helping us push really hard in the gym just so we have a goal. And I think just anytime we get to play together on a court and especially play against opponents is going to be really exciting.
Does it feel a little bit like going back to high school with kind of your high school season in the fall and then kind of club season in the spring and what is that whole kind of aspect a part of it like?
It's definitely going to be different. I think it's going to be exciting just being able to play and be competitive for a longer span of time. It's going to be interesting kind of having that break in December, but I think we're all just really excited.
How annoying was it going through the first couple of weeks of camp not knowing what the future held?
It was a little frustrating just because we literally had no idea what was going on, and just having to work out and everything. We were just working out and practicing just like we were going to have a normal season. And we just try to keep that mentality like we're going to play like we're about to have a season until they tell us we're not. And so I think that was really good for us just to get some good reps in, but it's definitely some big motivation now that we have an answer.
Is it?
How? Oh, go Justin.
Oh, yeah. Either way, just the games you play in the fall. Are you looking at it as like trying to go undefeated, or is it more like, hey, let's get ready, make sure we're ready for the spring? Like, it's so weird to have a split season. So how are y'all kind of viewing that? I know obviously you're a competitor, you want to win every match, but do you anticipate it being more like a preseason, or is this like gung ho, let's go 8-0?
I mean, I think going into it, we're obviously going to go and try to go 8-0, but I think it's also just, going in every game like it's the first game with that team, because it will be back-to-back games with each team that we play, 4 different weekends. And so I think just having the same mindset every time we play is going to be one of the biggest things that we're going to have to do, just so that we don't lose the second game that we play with them.
Would you have wanted to play if there was no shot at a championship, whether it's conference or national championship?
That was a big question that was kind of going around our team, just wondering where our heads were at. I think, speaking on behalf of my team, that I think that we were all on the same page, that we wanted to play regardless. Obviously, if we could have had a chance at a national championship by pushing it back to the spring, that we would want to compete for that. But we'd rather play in the fall without a national championship than not play at all. And so I think now that we have a chance to do both and even, get a few games in is going to be really good for us.
Without knowing what the schedule was going to look like, how much of a relief was it also to hear that the NCAA was going to grant that extra year of eligibility to the fall sports athletes, and kind of know that no matter what happened, you could come back?
It was a big relief, just because we were all kind of confused with how that would work, just because of so many athletes and with the spring sports last year and just not knowing what it looked like. And so I think it takes a lot of stress off of us, just in case, this chaotic season doesn't go as planned. And we were wondering if something happened and we got 2 games in to the season and then, worst case scenario, we had to shut it down, that we would lose a whole season just for those 2 games or however many games. And so I think it's going to be really good that we get to keep working and keep practicing together, and then also come back next year not having to worry about that.
Any other questions for Lauren?
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
You go. Thank you.
Marissa, are you going to take us on a trip to Bird's office? Is that the plan?
She gone.
I'm ready to rock.
So, Coach, what is the initial thoughts on now having some clear guidance on how things are going to go? And just do you think the format is agreeable for the season and how things are going to play out?
Well, howdy, everybody. Yeah, I had to get a howdy in there. I think it is agreeable. We've been talking as SEC head coaches for months, and I think we have the advantage and the opportunity to play matches in the fall. It was just figuring out how many we wanted to do and what would be good for our teams and just the timing of it. So I think it's good for us. I think it's a huge opportunity to display the SEC volleyball and still have the opportunity to play in a championship in the spring. So I'm excited about it.
I know there's multiple levels to athletic directors and presidents and conference offices and stuff to make all these decisions, but how much of that guidance and that conversation that y'all had as coaches went into what the end result is here that we're seeing today?
We had a lot of input. I mean, we met as head coaches, then RSWAs. I think we talked to them one-on-one a lot. So there was a lot of communication, and I think they wanted to know what our best interest, what we really wanted, what we were pushing for. So, I mean, there was some give and take, but I think the communication was pretty strong for all of us.
Being that we're in the middle of a global pandemic and everything, would you say this is a best case scenario, worst case scenario, somewhere in the middle? How would you kind of rate the solution the SEC came to?
I think it gives us a lot of flexibility, to be honest. I think we're in a really good situation based on moving forward. We're like all training right now and in it. So I think if we have that opportunity to play matches, that's huge. And then we'll see how this progresses into the spring. You know, I mean, nothing's guaranteed, even this fall. So for sure, playing on the spring, I think it just gives us flexibility. So I don't know where that answer falls. I think it gives us flexibility.
I'll steal.
Do you have any
No,
guidance?
don't steal my question. Don't you steal my question.
I thought you left. I thought you left.
Fight.
It's really not that good of a question, but how do you approach these 8 games in the fall? You're a competitor, you're a coach. I know you want to win them all. That's y'all's mentality. But do you go with different lineups? Do you try to figure out what's going to work best in the spring because that's when a championship is on the line, so to speak? How do you approach that?
I think it's a mix of all of it. I think it's a great opportunity to get experience for some of our younger players, our new kids. But we also, I mean, you said it, we had to figure out our best lineup. So even if we went into a regular fall season, we still would want to figure out our best lineup. And with non-conference not happening, we were going to have to do that in SEC play anyway. So, I mean, yeah, we're going to go out and try to win the matches, but we also need to figure out our best lineup. So there'll be a little bit of both.
Do y'all have any guidance or have had any conversations yet about maybe what fan attendance is going to look like or what y'all hope fan attendance is going to look like for these games?
As of right now, I think we just fall under the 25%. I think it's just the same as whatever the state or local guidelines are. I think we're the first indoor sport. So I think that's going to have a factor at the end of the day. But I have not heard anything specific yet.
Great.
Would you guys have wanted to play in the fall if there was play at all if there was no chance at a SEC or national championship, Coach?
I think we want to compete. I don't know if it would have been just spring. You know what I mean? If we would have just flipped our season and just done 4 spring competitions and then saw what happened in the real spring, if we would have just played then. I think anytime you get to compete and it's a safe environment and you know your players and everyone feels good about it, I think it's good. I mean, that's why they want to play at this level. That's why they're here. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces right now, you know? I mean, the social unrest, all of the NBA, everything happening. So I think there are platforms, and that's the biggest thing for us is having those conversations and that dialogue, because there's a pandemic along with keeping them safe, but there's the whole mental side of it too. So I think there's always moving pieces, but I'll say this, being back together with them is awesome. I know all of us have been like at home and in these crazy different situations for the last 5 months. being back here and getting in a routine has been the best thing for all of us, players and coaches. So that's
Coach,
been special.
you mentioned having conversations with your team. How have those gone, and how have the team? How's the team been, receptive and understanding of what's been discussed?
Well, we've been in every type of situation on Zoom, having team meetings. Then they're back in College Station, but we're still on Zoom, and now we're in person. So those dynamics, I think everyone's grown and had to learn that process and that communication. But they've all been vulnerable, and we've had great conversations. And I think that's going to continue. And they're tough conversations, but they're real. And the biggest thing is just providing the platform and the safe space for us to be there and have those conversations. So, I mean, it's just real life, and we're here to go through it together, and that's why we're a family. So,
Bird, is the spring season going to be a full season? Do you have any details on that?
it will probably be limited, and it won't be the same length of a full season for the teams that aren't playing in the fall, which is the positive for us getting some matches in, because that hasn't been specified. So it could be 6 weeks, it could be 8 weeks, it could be 4 weeks. Like, nothing has been determined yet because they haven't set the championship date yet. So that's why that's another benefit to us getting matches in the fall if we can.
So just to clarify off what Justin said, that there will be some kinds of maybe like non-conference or warm-up matches before an NCAA tournament or championship takes place in the spring?
There might not be non-con. We might just finish out our SEC play and then go right into a championship bracket.
Okay.
So that will look different too. Like that could be a smaller bracket. They're just, none of those details have been released, which again is why I think the flexibility of us getting to play some matches in the fall is huge.
Gotcha. So just to clarify, the conference slate will be split between fall and spring. So you'll have two different sets of conference games.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
These records don't count though, right?
Yeah, they will.
Oh, they will count.
Yeah, it will count. So that's the one thing that got waived from the NCAA is because usually you have to have a non-championship season and then a championship season. They're waiving that for this year because ACC, Big 12, and us and the Sun Belt, I believe, they're gonna count.
So going back to my question, then it's really not. While you're tinkering with lineups, if these 8 matches count towards your overall record to get into the postseason, then really it's on the line from the get-go then.
It is. Yes, it is, for sure. But the other crazy part, we don't even know how many teams are going to get in that.
True.
So.
Can I ask an actual volleyball question real quick?
Yes.
Well, on the court, like we haven't talked to you since the first day of practice. How has the team progressed? How has the progression been? And are you pleased with what you've seen the last 2.5 weeks?
I think this has been our best week of practice. Today was a little up and down, but this has been our best week, and we are getting into a lot more 6-on-6. So we are happy with our progress. It just takes time. Like volleyball there's a lot of rhythm. So when you're coming back and they have to get their touch back with the ball and just their own connection and dynamics. But yeah, it's been good this week, and we've progressed well, and now the interesting part is going to be that we're going to go back into an 8-hour phase, which is technically less training time, and then start back up into 20 hours in October again before we play. So it's not bad. You know what I mean? Like we'll probably keep the same schedule we're doing. It's just going to be less amount of time in the gym.
Before you knew that what the schedule was going to look like in this thing, the NCAA came out with that the fall athletes will get a year of eligibility relief. Per the school's guidance. What is that excitement for you as a coach that these players could kind of have that mental relief and have that relief going into it? Or I know there's maybe some roster challenges. What is your take on that as a coach with kind of everything above that's involved with it?
Our number one priority is always the student athlete that's here now and to take care of them. So I think it's huge. It's exactly what you said. It relieves them mentally. They're going to get that year back of eligibility, and we'll deal with the other stuff when that happens. And yes, it's going to be roster management. It's going to fall back on each university. Everyone's going to handle that differently. But the priority is those kids right now that are here and taking care of them and doing what's best for them. So I think it's good. We'll deal with everything else down the road, and we'll figure that out.
when we talked to you before, you said that Tom was on your side, that you were going to be able to not have as long a practice or two-a-days or whatever. How has that worked out for the team, and are they ready to play someone that's not wearing maroon and white?
It's worked out really well for us. And like I said, we're going to go back to 8 hours for a little segment of time here. But I still think that's going to be good for them because their bodies are still adapting and adjusting. I know they're excited to compete. Like when I first mentioned that this was happening last week and we were having these discussions, you can tell they're competitors. I mean, they want to compete. That's why they're here. So I think it gives them a goal and it gives them that drive, like what we're doing and why we're here. We've talked about mindset and getting better every day, but once they know there's like a focus and they get to compete like that, they light up. So that's been cool to see because you never really know. I mean, they have a lot going on. They're back in school and there's all of this unknown, but they were genuinely excited, I think, about competing. And we'll continue to work through that and all those conversations and, you know, what's going on throughout the country. So there's always enough Q&A with us. Mike, I'll tell you the story that you guys are going to be covering this year.
Shoot.
Short court. Our staff short court games are getting intense. I'm just going to say. We played after practice. We usually just play before practice. We played after practice today. Colby was dripping wet, like sweating. So we already talked about it. Marissa was out there. She was watching it. She's like, this might be a bird's eye view.
Is short court a half court volleyball?
It's like 10-foot line on both sides, and it's 2v2, and you can't jump. So it's Ryan, our volunteer, and I always have the volunteer, and then Wendell and Colby.
Nice. I think I could be good at that.
We've had some probably the most epic rallies we've had since we've been here as a staff.
We've seen you on the volleyball court, dude. You can do zero good.
Well, hold up. I don't think my overall volleyball game can be judged from trying to return serves from Holland hands. I think that's a minute facet. I'm a libero. Well, you can't jump. I'm a setter.
You can't jump, so you can't spike.
Excuse me.
You can't jump in this game, though, so it's good. You can't jump in this game.
I'm going to go ahead and say that Mike can jump better than any of the rest of us that are in this